Getting a cast is never comfortable for anybody, and especially for those who've never had a cast before, it's important to walk through with them and educate them on what it'll feel like and what to expect and what to look out for, and that's what I'm doing here. So I'm letting her know that, especially for her, because she's getting a cast on her arm, it's important to look out for swelling, and the best way to prevent that is essentially to keep the arm elevated as best as possible for the first 48 to 72 hours. The first step to casting is to put on a sleeve on the patient. Now, as you may see, the sleeve here, it's a little too snug for her arm. And somebody who has a true fracture in their arm, this is gonna be very uncomfortable for them. So make sure that you have the right resources and the right materials to do a cast. So again, here you don't want to apply any extra like movement to the arm and extra compression with your hands. So make sure you have a sleeve that fits nice and easy onto the hand versus having to really wiggle the arm into that sleeve. This is not the ideal environment to cast my patient, but this was the only place we were able to shoot the video. So for future reference, make sure your patient has somewhere comfortable to rest their arm on so that they don't have to hold it up the entire time you are casting them. When applying the padding to the patient, I'm coming around on the right side and giving a little bit of a tear on the padding. This just makes sure that the padding is applied onto the patient evenly without any spaces, like open spaces, and excessive wrinkles. At the clinic, we didn't have any sleeves or the stockinets for the thumb. So just make sure that when you do put on a cast that your patient has a stockinet around their thumb so that we can cover it and it won't get irritated from the casting material. And you can always add an extra layer of padding around the arm just to give a little bit more comfort for the patient. Now that we have the padding on our patient, I'm going to take the casting material and I'm going to dip it into a bucket of warm water and get it soaked completely so that it's ready to apply onto the patient. And make sure to squeeze out any extra water so that it doesn't get all over the patient. And now, unfortunately, the only casting material we had was a little bit outdated and expired, so it's taking a little bit more time to unroll the casting material. So I had to make sure that I wasn't pulling tight on the patient because, again, if they're already experiencing swelling, we don't want to pull any tension on that casting material because we don't want it to be tight on the patient. To get around the thumb, I cut a small slit on the casting material so that it doesn't get on the thumb. So when you do this, just make sure that your slit is big enough to where the casting material doesn't touch the skin. Now that we got the first layer of casting on, I'm gonna take the stockinette and just fold it over the first layer of casting that we put on. That way when we put on the second layer of casting, there's no cast that will be irritating the skin. From here, we just repeat the steps from the first layer of casting. So soaking the casting material and then squeezing out the excess water and then applying the casting material as quickly as possible onto the patient. So now I just got my hands a little bit wet and I'm trying to mold the cast and smooth the edges. So just be careful with the type of fracture the patient has because the molding process is essential, but you don't want it to essentially hurt the patient. Unless there is a fracture in the fingers, you shouldn't cast over the MCP joints. We just don't want to limit that range of motion. Definitely use a thumb sleeve to cover the thumb because we don't want it to irritate the web space. Please make sure you are checking the expiration date of your casting material. It will not harden, it will not go on smoothly, and it will overall not produce a great result of a good cast. After molding the first layer to the patient, make sure it dries completely and then fold over the sleeves and then begin applying your next layer of casting.